Well then, looks like it's gonna be another 2 video day. I do apologize, but things are things. And so, let's get into it. Let's not waste any more time. Today I'm gonna talk about why war in particular should be swift. See, even in a defensive war, oftentimes it's better to end a war quickly than to constantly drag it out. Attrition can be useful, yes, but in truth that is not the end goal. Your goal is not to destroy everything, but rather to win. And so, if war is inevitable or better than peace in a situation, it is best to get involved. That's just basic reality. Think about it. If a war is going to come to your door, you know it, and everyone else knows it, then it's better to act first, to get the momentum and start to take the initiative. Now, you should plan, of course. It is vital to plan and to prepare logistics, but all of that must be in service of something, a purpose. And that purpose should be a quick and efficient victory. The longer a war goes on, the more lives will be lost or ruined, not to mention adding in the extra financial cost as well. You could have disease spread, collateral damage, outright combat deaths, even something as simple as a famine, which can easily happen with especially the major destruction that can come in a war. And if you're in a more backwards country or a landlocked country with not many trading opportunities, then famine is very likely. Indeed, it is one of the things that has killed quite a lot of people throughout history. And that's what happens when a war goes on for a long period of time. You get famines, you get diseases, lots of collateral damage, combat deaths, just fighting in general, and it's very costly. Needless to say, that is best avoided. And so, there's a conclusion. The most effective way to conduct war is a quick offensive, even if it's a bit of a dirty one in nature. Quick and dirty may not be the most ideal situation, oftentimes, but it is one that's very effective, especially if you're trying to win a quick victory. Take, for example, the Silesian Wars with Frederick the Great. Were all of his actions the best? No. But Frederick was able to keep up the offense and successfully push back the Austrians. He was very effective in this, and so he won quickly without wasting too many men, which for Prussia was very important. Now, he did get lucky in the 7 Years' War, that's without question, but the fact of the matter is, he was very effective in the Silesian Wars and demonstrated why a quick war is beneficial, especially if you have shortages. Defense and occupation are slightly different from just outright warfare, but even still, a swift victory gives more time to handle such things and means less damage to the enemy country in the long term until it can be converted into an ally or a protectorate, depending on what you wish to do with them. Take Afghanistan, for instance. The quick victory in Afghanistan was very useful for the United States. Yeah, 20-year occupation is a pain, but importantly, that 20 years allowed the US to build up influence in the region and nation build. Did they make the best decisions? Not all the time, no, not even close. But to say it was a very effective early engagement would be an understatement. It was a wipe of a lot of early Taliban forces. And that allowed for a lot of time to focus less on, outright destruction and instead to focus on rebuilding, giving people rights, making sure everything worked as it should. Making the country something worth staying around. It allowed Afghanistan to develop, at least somewhat. Was it perfect? No. But it was beneficial compared to what would have happened if, say, it was like the Iran-Iraq war, with constant backs and forths and clashes over cities. The sheer amount of deaths that occurred in the Iran-Iraq war is rather high, especially for those who aren't used to looking into it. Go ahead, though, look into it, and you'll see exactly what I mean. The war was brutal, and it meant even if, say, Iran won and Iraq was taken out, the expenditure would be immense and it would be hard to truly occupy it. It would have been a Pyrrhic victory at best. And that is also what's going on with the Ukraine war as well for Russia. Even if Russia wins at this point, let's say they do, and let's say they take over all of Ukraine. Great. All that infrastructure that was destroyed, guess who's going to pay for its rebuilding? Russia. All those men lost, guess who's not going to get the tax revenue from that? Russia. All the stuff already expended for the war, guess who already lost it? Russia. The international prestige loss that came from the fact that a smaller country basically stalled a great power for many years, that's going to come out of Russia's prestige. The fact is, the longer a war goes on, the worse it gets for everyone involved, but especially the stronger power. Because sure, a weaker power will eventually lose, but the stronger power is the one who won't necessarily have to garrison everything, who will have to pay things out, and will have the finances to, handle the outcome. But it does mean they're going to be the ones losing said finances that they have. When war is inevitable, things will go to it. World War II is a good example. There was no way that we could have a peaceful resolution with Hitler, nor with Stalin. Even with Stalin, he actively made treaties with Germany to expand his influence. Now, with that said, that is just a reality, and that will happen today, or the next year, or the year after that. Sometimes people are just like that. There are warmongers and people who seek more influence. Whether you could call them good or bad depends on where you stand on it. Some people would just say all are, others will say it depends on ideology. But importantly, the swift victory is crucial because of that. With such people around, war is inevitable, and so the cost of it should be minimized. And, naturally, the quickest way to minimize a conflict is to end it. To put it to you another way, let's say you lose 100,000 people each year for a 5-year war. Quite a lot of losses, but it should put this into perspective. What if instead you lost 75,000 over 10 because you slowed the war down? In which war do you lose the most people? Now you just heard the 100,000, you'd probably think the first. But in truth, you would actually lose more in the second. About 25,000 times 10, so a good 250,000 extra. Just that alone should put into perspective why you want wars to be shorter. Even if you lose more men up front, which, let's face it, offensives tend to cost more than defensive engagements. That's just how it works. In such a situation, given that, the quicker you get things over with, the less men they're going to drag to the front, the less men they're going to have to call up, reorganize, plan around, and get the logistics ready to engage you. In short, you want to get them quickly so that they can't mobilize effectively against you. If you want an actual example that is very relevant to the United States, look at the American Civil War, and actually think about the positions of both sides during it. The United States was a country divided in two. Did the South have less resources? Yes. Was it less developed? Yes. Slavery was a part of that. But no matter what the reason was, it was less developed. But it could have won. It didn't, however, because it didn't win a swift victory. And so it allowed the North to effectively mobilize against them, to get their navy ready to blockade the South, to get the people in the army so that they could march down south, and to get the plans ready so that they could successfully push on multiple fronts, alongside the logistics that was planned for that express purpose. A quick war is better, especially for a country that can't win a long war of attrition. But it's better for both sides in truth. It's not exclusive to one. Because all that which I said about loss is true for both sides in a conflict. Again, going back to the American Civil War for another example, during the end of the war, we would actually see a sort of trench warfare before World War One. So World War One's famous for it, but it was a sort of primitive version of it that occurred back in the Civil War, especially near the end. Entrenchments were dug, defense became very, very lucrative, and so the North lost a lot of troops just trying to break the South's hold, despite the fact that the South was going to lose. They were essentially using every means available to try to stall the North from a victory, even though they know they were in a losing situation. Can I blame them? Not really. I mean, it makes sense. Hold out and see if you can get something out of it. But in truth, it was just wasteful. And the result was the same, really, just extra bodies piled. And for the North, that was a huge loss. That's lost tax revenue, that's lost garrisons for later, which would definitely matter, and lost morale, which would play into how willing people would to go with Reconstruction. Let's face it, if Reconstruction was done with a very quick Northern victory, I severely doubt that people would have been as resistant to it. Because, well, think about it. If it was a quick and effective war, think people are going to complain? No, you won the war quickly. You saved a lot of their sons, and you gained a lot of prestige. You showed your strength. Sure, people may complain about the cost of the war overall, but they're not going to say this was a complete waste of blood in the same way that they would if, say, oh, you were continually fighting for 4 years and constantly throwing men into the meat grinder, drafting them up, and sending them out there. Fact is, the longer a war goes on, the worse your morale goes. And that affects a lot of things, alongside everything else I already mentioned. War should be swift. It should be efficient. Get in, get out, or get in quick, occupy them, invest in what you need to, establish an efficient or effective state, and slowly withdraw as they effectively garrison themselves in your name or as an ally. That should be the goal. Efficiency. Now one may say, oh, that sounds a bit different. I mean, you are an imperialist after all, wouldn't you support constant engagements? No. The goal of imperialism is expressly to avoid such a thing. You don't want constant warfare, you just want to be the one with everything. The one who wins. Swift wars are the best way to achieve this. For every group, short of those who are constantly trying to make a profit off of war, which itself is a bit of an oxymoron because it means you can have less people buying your stuff, it is beneficial to end a war quickly. You should not want it to drag on. War is sometimes necessary. It just is a fact. Even if you want to argue we should do wars less, sure, go ahead, argue it. But sometimes it is necessary. You're not going to get out of conflict with people. But if it is necessary, and it's bloody, then logically, we should want the blood spread to be short. We want the blood shed to be reduced as much as possible and to minimize the collateral. Thus, a swift and effective operation and quick victory is what should be done. And if it can't be achieved, well then, if you want attrition, you can accept it. Just accept the expense that comes with it. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day.